G'day guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you enjoyed today's bloody good content, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie. Let's get right into it. Cheers. Posted by user Poetry Sonnets, titled, "Am I the asshole here for not telling my fiancé that my late partner was a man? I, 29 male, lost my fiancé 4 years ago in a car accident. He and I were both 25 at the time and had been together since we were 19. If soulmates are real, he was mine. He was stubborn, he preferred a way earlier bedtime than I did, and was a major homebody, and I loved all of it. He would stay up with me until he was sure that I fell asleep, and weekly movie theater outings, planned by him, became a thing like a month into us meeting. I am a fundamentally different person, both because I met him and because of my grief. I was shown what real love and effort and care feels like. I also don't talk about him. I go to therapy once a week, otherwise it's silence on that topic from me. He lives on in me in the ways that I try to emulate him. I practice the patience he had that I always struggled to find. I go after career-related opportunities that scare me because I know he would encourage me to. Sometimes I let myself stay in bed because I know he would be gentle with me and let me do that too, but I don't always talk about him, and I probably never will. I'll make the occasional, "Oh, X would have loved this" comment when I'm with my friends who knew him well. With strangers, nothing. My friends and family respect that as well. I'm engaged again. My fiancé, 31 female, obviously knows that I was engaged before. I pretty much told her, my last partner passed away and I don't talk about it. I don't use social media in really any capacity anymore, but she happened to stumble upon an old Instagram profile of mine recently and saw him heavily featured. This led to her accusing me of purposefully keeping this from her. I don't really see why his gender matters, and I told her so. She says that I've broken her trust. Times like these are when I long for the life that I was living before, but grief screwed up my brain, so I'm not sure if I'm being insensitive. Edit, she knew I'm bisexual. The only thing she doesn't know was that my fiancé was a man. In the comments, you kept the fact that he was a man secret because you knew that it would be an issue. You're the asshole. OP says, I live in a very liberal area and I've never heard my fiancé express any bigoted views. I wouldn't be in this relationship if I had. I wrongly assumed that it was a complete non-issue. Edit, she knows that I'm bisexual and has known for our entire relationship. Even worse. So, if your partner would not be okay with you being bisexual, then you'd qualify her as a bigot? You're full of yourself. Get help. And if you care about her, get away and don't hurt her anymore. Is it just me feeling like these comments are overreacting? I feel like we're really hitting the line of, I know exactly what the partner is thinking, and I know exactly how she would feel in this instance. No you wouldn't, commenter. OP replies, she's okay with me being bisexual. The only thing she wasn't aware of was that my late fiancé was a man. But to answer your question, yes, I do think not dating someone simply on the grounds of their orientation is bigoted, but it does usually save me trouble when dating because it helps weed people out. The STD argument lets me know that they're ignorant, and the now I have to worry about girls and guys shows insecurity or some kind of inherent lack of trust. Oof, some of these comments are rough. Here is my perspective as a widow. You need to talk to your therapist about this, not Reddit. Wrong. Talk to Reddit about it. I love spotlighting my insecurities. I love projecting my insecurities out onto other people's problems. It's so fun. Most people have no idea what it's like to lose so much and just how much that loss shapes you. But also, it's concerning to me that he sounds like such a big part of your internal life, but you've never even mentioned him with your current partner. Before you get married, you need to dig into why you've compartmentalized this to such an intense degree. Why are you hiding him? What are you afraid of? If I'm being generous, I think seeing that your late fiancé was a man shocked your fiancé into realizing that she knows absolutely nothing about this major part of you. OP says, I really appreciate your comment, and thank you. It's very thoughtful. I don't think there's anything that I'm necessarily scared of, but I'm very protective of his memory. Sharing him with someone he didn't choose to share his story with kind of freaks me out in a way. I don't know. I'm aware that that's irrational. Then there's the risk that the new partner would get tired of hearing about him or otherwise insecure about it, and that makes me really uncomfortable to think about too. So I guess I just keep him safe in me and my mind, and it protects me too. On if the fiancé was having an issue with the previous partner's gender, OP says, because the gender issue is all she's fixated on, at least during our conversation. Also, it makes me uncomfortable to be with someone who is okay with my bisexuality in theory, but not in practice. If the thought of me having sex or being romantic with a man in the past makes the other person insecure, then I'm not really down for that. I come out to any potential romantic partners early on, so I thought I'd already done my due diligence in that regard. I probably should have been more open, but I didn't anticipate that I needed to have a second coming out where I admit that me saying I'm bisexual actually means I'm bisexual. Like, not just in the I like kissing dudes in bars kind of way, but in the romantic morning sex 6 years into a relationship way. Quote, I long for the life that I was living before. Homie, you don't want to get married again. This ain't gonna go well. Agreed. If you aren't 100% sure that you want to get married, then don't get married. It's not fair to your fiancé. Yeah, if I was OP in this situation, I do think that the bi erasure going on by their partner or just bi attacks that they're receiving would make me question that marriage. And I do think Sergeant Sevchenko has a point there. The I long for the life that I was living before. You wouldn't say anything like that if the engagement was otherwise spectacular and there were no problems and things were going really well. While yes, comparison is the thief of joy, I think comparison can also be a good litmus test in figuring out whether you are happy in your spot in life right now or not. Comparing a seemingly stable life that you had where you were overall happy before to a situation where you're now dealing with rampant jealousy, and I'd go as far as to say a bit of bigotry coming from your partner, that wouldn't make me feel too good as a person. It wouldn't make me feel wanted in that relationship. From what you've said, I don't believe that you were hiding the fact that he was a man because you knew that it would be an issue. I feel like that was a complete stretch. And if you knew that your partner had those views against men, and especially against women being with men in their immediate romantic life, I feel like given what you've said, you would get the hell out of that relationship because why would you stay with someone like that? Also, that follow-up comment, so if your partner wouldn't be okay with you being bisexual, then you'd qualify her as bigoted? Am I living in crazy land? Is that not a bigoted thing to do? You're judging someone off the basis of their orientation? I am simply perplexed that people are able to do such mental gymnastics in this day and age. Anyway, from my point of view, OP, I don't think that you're the asshole here for this one. I don't even think that talking this one out and getting therapy and coming to a middle ground together will fix the broken foundations of this relationship. And now, onto the update. I figured that I'd go ahead and post an update before I return to my all lurk, no post/comment Reddit life. Yesterday, I had an emergency therapy session because I was spiraling and didn't feel prepared to tackle the upcoming conversation with my fiancé without one. It was hard but necessary as I was finally honest about just how much I was compartmentalizing my grief. It laid the foundation for where I would like to go moving forward. Now I have to put in the legwork. The few hours between my therapy appointment and my fiancé getting off work was evidence of just how avoidant I've become. It was a conversation that we needed, but definitely not one that I wanted. When we finally sat down to talk, I asked her to start us off by telling me exactly what was bothering her about the whole situation. She said because I'd come out to her in a casual way, the way that I'd come out to anyone, by mentioning it early on when it seems natural to bring up, she didn't realize how serious I was, and this made her look at me differently. She apologized for that and suggested that if I told her more about him now, it might be an easier pill for her to swallow. I don't like the way she worded that. What do you mean? I tried, but there was this knot in my stomach the entire time that I tried to pick a place to start. And maybe this is me being cruel, not giving her the benefit of the doubt, but it just didn't feel right. She hadn't come and said, "I was shocked because I realized how little I know about this time in your life. Would you be open to talking about it now?" Instead, it felt like, "Tell me what you saw in him so I can attempt to rationalize your orientation." I told her I needed some time, so she went to stay elsewhere for the weekend. A longtime good friend of mine came over this morning. I think the combination of anonymously talking more openly about my partner here as well as being more open with my therapist helped me realize how joyous and cathartic it could be. I don't know the exact catalyst, but I do know that I spilled my guts. We talked for hours about things that I hadn't told anyone in years. I expressed how nervous I was about possibly living alone again, and I was told that I didn't ever have to worry about that an SOS text message would be all it took for me to have company if I needed it. Same goes for all my friends and family. I'm so lucky that I have an incredible support system. 5 minutes into that hours-long conversation, I already knew. The trust, security, and love that I felt made room for this newfound openness. The absence of any of those marks a relationship DOA and is why I felt physically ill trying to share his memory with her. I truly wish her the best. I think going our separate ways will be good for the both of us. We weren't getting what we needed from each other. She's supposed to be coming back tomorrow, so we'll have the talk then. I have lots of work to do, but for tonight, I get to be reminded of what safety feels like. Edit. Please see this comment where I elaborate on the conversation that she and I had, and I'll read that just after this edit. There seems to be this misunderstanding where I blame her for everything because she didn't perfectly respond to the situation. Two things can be true. I wasn't open, I am largely accountable for the problems in this relationship, and I never should have entered it if I wasn't ready. She also said ignorant things. I'm not angry about it, and it's certainly not the sole reason that we are breaking up. It's just another reason, on the pile of reasons why this isn't sustainable. Me still not feeling comfortable enough to share with her does not equal me blaming her for everything, or even the majority. It was just the final nail in the coffin between maybe we can make this work with a lot of effort and this needs to end now. In the comments, Parking Mushroom 4107 says, "I'm glad you're on your road to healing, OP. It seems as though you brought just as many preconceived notions into your conversation with your fiancé as you believe she brought. I'm curious, what made you propose to her? Why didn't you feel that you could spend the rest of your life with this person? Why was she special enough? Also, what was your life like with your former fiancé? You said you have adopted his personality and traits, so have you gone from femme in that relationship to butch in this one? What did she find on that Instagram?" OP says, "I was very lonely when she and I began seeing each other. It was a little over a year ago. It was one of the first dates that I'd gone on after he had passed, and it felt good to meet someone who didn't know me before. I was feeling insecure at that time about this, entirely self-imposed, imaginary expectation that I return to normal at some point. None of my friends ever even slightly insinuated that this is something they wanted or expected, but it was still something that I held on to. So connecting with someone who didn't know me then felt like a blessing in some ways, and that feeling contributed to me proposing to her. Femme and butch are women-loving women terms, no? And I wouldn't say it's anything like that. I'm just much less talkative these days. I used to be energetic and perpetually optimistic. I used to love telling stories and holding court at parties. Now I'm much more closed off. I like keeping to myself and keeping quiet. I'm straightforward now, much like he was, where I used to be a rambler who meandered my way through conversations. The Instagram was just full of photos of he and I. It's still hard for me to look back on. I love seeing him, but it's hard to see me. I look so happy, and I hate that that version of me has no idea what's coming. It's like a knife to the chest thinking of how I used to feel. It's bittersweet nostalgia amplified so much that it's painful." Finland Floodle replies to that, quote, "I was very lonely. At least acknowledge that you used her to yourself at some point so that you can grow." OP says, I was not ready and not a good partner to her. I was unfair and I shut myself off. I know that. The relationship shouldn't have happened. You are human and you are grieving. You made mistakes, you're admitting to them, you're working through stuff. I just wanted to encourage you not to get too caught up in everyone here piling on. I get your concerns about possible biphobia too. None of us were in that conversation, and our opinions don't matter much anyway because we're not in your relationship. Go in peace. Best wishes for your continued healing and personal growth. OP says, thank you, sincerely. It can be easy to get so focused on what people are getting wrong that I get stuck doom scrolling. The conversation that I had with her left me sick to my stomach and uncomfortable. I'm definitely not excusing the choices I made. This could have been rectified much earlier on had I been open. But it seems like everyone here is just brushing off my experience of the discussion we had. One where I specifically opened the floor to explain why she freaked out so much about his gender. Her answers didn't strike me as something that would lead to either of us being happy long term. Yeah, my nose had been in my phone long enough. Time to turn it off for the night and enjoy the real world. I appreciate you and your understanding. You said that you were extremely nervous before this conversation. Is it possible that you had predetermined that it would go badly and made a self-fulfilling prophecy out of your anxieties? Were your uncomfortable feelings caused by something concretely biphobic that she actually said, or by your own nerves, which caused you to interpret anything she said in the worst possible light? Did you communicate this discomfort to her? Did you ask her how she was feeling? Is it possible that your feelings could be the result of a clash between your avoidant nature and being forced to confront the problem, and her not having the perfect answers validated your feelings and desire to run again? Grief sucks, and it can warp our perspective of everyone else in our lives, including ourselves. I hope that you have a good therapist and are committed to honesty and working on yourself. OP replies, quote, is it possible that you had predetermined that it would go badly? OP says, no, I was nervous, but I went in with an open mind. I knew I likely needed to end the relationship or at least pump the brakes, but that doesn't mean that I went in guns blazing against her. I wasn't showing up in the way that I needed to. We hadn't started planning the wedding yet, and I knew now that that would likely be much farther down the line than originally anticipated if things went well during our talk. I had a lot that I needed to work through, and I didn't know if she would want to stay for that. Quotes, were your uncomfortable feelings caused by something concretely biphobic that she actually said? OP says, she said she didn't realize how serious I was about being bisexual when I had already come out to her. She also said that that made her look at me differently and apologized for that. To me, there is only one interpretation of that. I came out to her early on, but she didn't take my sexuality as a fact until she saw me with a man, and now she looks at me differently. And despite just devoting a paragraph to that conversation, it was much longer than that in person. I asked her to elaborate, and she doubled down on what she said. She was apologizing for seeing me differently and asking me to share memories of my late fiancé to make this an easier pill to swallow. The pill to swallow wasn't my engagement, and it wasn't her lack of knowledge about it. The pill to swallow was very specifically the fact that she now saw me differently because I was in a serious long-term relationship with a man. Did you communicate this discomfort to her? Did you ask her how she was feeling? OP says, yes and yes. Like I said, long conversation where I opened the floor to her first and then asked clarifying questions. Quote, is it possible your feelings could be the result of a clash between your avoidant nature and being forced to confront the problem? OP says, I didn't need perfect answers. I've been imperfect all throughout this relationship. We are here because I've been avoidant and messy and human. I am at fault here big time for not being open from the start, and I extend grace to her for having to put up with that. I'm sorry that I didn't have this conversation sooner and that I jumped into something that I wasn't ready for. What I needed was any shred of evidence that her problems with all of this stemmed from my lack of openness, as opposed to him being a man suddenly forcing her to take my sexuality seriously, and I didn't get any of that. And I'm not even really angry at her for that, you know? I don't understand why people are acting like I'm being hostile towards her. We are just not compatible. That is another reason to add to the pile. I'm not going to go into our next conversation blaming her for everything. I'm going to reiterate how it made me feel and encourage her to take bisexuality seriously from the jump though. But that's just one part of a much larger talk where I will take accountability and apologize for wasting her time when I couldn't give her all of me. And now, onto the latest mini update. I wanted to thank everyone for this sudden influx of nice comments and messages. I woke up to quite a few notifications and saw that I now have 80 followers here. I'm probably not going to stick around on this account, so I'm not sure if those followers are warranted, but I appreciate all the kind words all the same. I've been enjoying the single life. I was so terrified of living alone again, and I'm sure the loneliness will kick my ass at some point, but man, it's kind of really nice. I think my last relationship was an excuse for me to continue hiding from and suppressing my emotions and myself. I feel freer now. I feel more open. It's hard and painful, but I also feel like I'm remembering parts of myself that I lost or spent 4 years shoving into a box. I went out Friday nights. That's something that I haven't done since my life changed so drastically. I steered clear from alcohol for a long time because I was really terrified of the possibility of self-medicating with it. But now, I trust myself with moderation. I went out, had a few drinks, and danced with friends. I used to feel intense guilt for being happy. It wasn't rational, and I've outgrown that. Now, I just wish that he was here. I miss running back from the dance floor to where he was talking to friends. I miss having someone waiting for me. I miss acting like it was such a hassle to leave early upon his request, when really, I was looking forward to being home with my best friends. And yes, I miss the sex. I haven't had good sex in so long that it should be considered a national emergency. But yeah, single life is so good so far. Thanks again for the compassion and understanding. And you know what, OP, I'm very much happy for you that things are looking up now. You know, obviously that rebound relationship didn't go too well. You made a lot of mistakes, they made a lot of mistakes, and, you know, the breakup was inevitable throughout all of that when irreconcilable differences showed their head. Thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciated reading it. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.